The dramatic scene in which Kang Jin-hoo rescues a person from falling from a bridge was broadcast live by a camera below and a drone in the air. Foreign media also covered this matter carefully and it became a big issue for a while. This is really great. Spring again after the strong earthquake with this incident. Where are the chaebols who go up there and persuade them? I can never go up. Wasn't the protest taking place because of the earthquake in the first place? It is no different than Kang Jin-hoo pushing his back to go up. The one who raised his back was the president of the taxi company. What kind of Taxi Operators Federation executive member are you? You have to jump into the Han River to give an impact. Hey, if you want to make an impact like that, then G will jump. The one who made that happen or the one who followed? Why don't you have a haircut? That's why the taxi industry is in trouble. Oh, would you do that? Yes. How difficult would it be to refuse boarding, pick up passengers and drive recklessly every day ignoring signals? All the people need to understand. The taxi industry should reflect on this opportunity. At this point, shouldn't the CL Group give you an Executor of the Year award? You won the Nobel Peace Prize anyway. The boss, who was known to have given the order, was arrested by the police and staunchly denied his allegations. It is true that he made the banner, but he never instructed him to climb or jump over the arch. However, the text message received by the employee was soon revealed to be false. The boss changed his mind, saying that it was sent as a joke while intoxicated and not a work order, but the police requested an arrest warrant for committing suicide. If you drink alcohol, you'll punch them finally, but does it make sense to send a text message to the staff telling them to jump into the Han River? I remember when I suddenly got drunk and ordered a DDoS attack by the National Election Commission. What's the excuse for drinking when there's a problem in this country? Leave me alone. That's how you get your sentences commuted. I assure you, now you claim that you had a mental illness. Haha, this is 100%. Let's just execute him cleanly. The taxi industry drew a line saying it was not related, but the police expanded the investigation to include the group to which the president is a member of the executive committee. As the police investigation began in earnest and public opinion worsened, the executive branch who led the demonstration apologized to the people and expressed gratitude to Kang Jin-hoo. The predicted second strike has been postponed indefinitely. After being scolded by her mother and Ellie, Hyunju's sister came and scolded her again. We were only released after we promised not to do anything dangerous in the future, and to stop each other if one of us attempted to do something dangerous. Taekyu said with a face that seemed to have lost his mind. I feel like my soul has been stolen. My sister's personality hasn't died yet. My mother's storm-nagging skills didn't even die. Ellie wasn't easy either. Are you okay? Am I in trouble? I read the material while lying on the sofa. What are you reading? Analysis of the Korean taxi industry. Anything interesting? Huh. Have you heard of private payment? Money to the company? Right. Instead of paying drivers a salary, Korean taxi companies rent a car for 12 hours and receive about 150,000 won. All sales after paying the private payment are the responsibility of the drivers. But what if there are few customers and you earn less than your personal payment? In this case, even if you add your own money, you have to make up for the shortfall. Instead of making money by working all day, you can actually lose money. Interestingly, there is no legal basis for this private payment. Using common sense, if a company hires an employee, does it make sense that they should pay a salary, and that they rent a car for a fixed fee every day? In fact, it was more like a taxi rental company than a taxi company. There were several attempts to change this to a monthly salary system, but it was cancelled due to collective protests from taxi companies. Due to the private payment system, a taxi company's profit is not determined by the company's total sales, but by how many taxis it lends to how many drivers. In other words, in order for a taxi company to increase profits, it is necessary to increase the number of taxis and the number of drivers who will pay private payments, not sales per unit. In this way, there is no need for service competition between taxi companies. Taxi drivers also engage in all sorts of illegal methods such as picking up long-distance guests, running with the meter off, and collecting additional fees to make more money, as all of the losses and profits determined based on private payments are their share. Naturally, the service quality of all taxis is downgraded, and the damage goes straight to the passengers. Everyone has had the experience of having trouble getting a taxi late at night in Gangnam or Hongdae. I'd rather understand if it's because I don't really see taxis, but there are actually a lot of taxis stopping on the road. They are all refusing to board and only pick and choose passengers that fit their taste. Perhaps because of that, public opinion about the strike and the demonstration was not very good, and the approval rate for ride-sharing and carpooling exceeded 70%. The reality of the Korean taxi industry is that it is still difficult to catch a taxi at late hours. Refusal to ride is rampant, and drivers cannot earn even the minimum wage despite long working hours. That's not to say that taxi companies make huge bucks. There were a lot of small businesses because all you had to do was rent a taxi to the drivers and collect the payment. In this situation, external competitors such as ride-sharing and driverless cars appeared. So what about other countries? Ride-sharing is allowed in many countries, which has put the taxi industry in trouble. But it did not stand still. Taxi companies in each country have launched their own calling apps and created various differentiated services to enhance the competitiveness of taxis. In some countries, e-fare and taxi coexist, or the taxi industry won the service competition and drove e-fare out. On the other hand, in the meantime, the Korean taxi industry has gone on strike and has only shouted opposition, but nothing has changed. Although this condition has been going on for a long time, no one has touched it. Politicians were conscious of the taxi industry's votes and only noticed, and they brought the problem here without being able to do this or that. Take you asked. It would have been a little different if e-fare had come to Korea. I don't know. Perhaps as feared, the taxi industry may have collapsed. But at least the service would have been greatly improved. But why did e-fare withdraw? Is it illegal? There is, but the biggest reason is that I don't have much money. In fact, in most countries, private transportation is illegal. After starting the service, e-fare solved the legal problem by winning consumer opinion. If the market size was large and it was likely to make a lot of money, it would have continued to operate at any cost. However, taxi fares are cheaper in Korea than in other developed countries, and excessive competition is already taking place. That's why they withdrew and focused more on other markets. The taxi industry is concerned that I will bring unmanned taxis to Korea right away, but driverless taxis have not yet been released. And even if they are, bringing them to Korea will be a long time later. First of all, unlike other countries in Korea, even the laws related to autonomous driving are not properly established. It is impossible to launch AD1 and AD2 in Korea under the current law. I did not develop the driverless car, but it is true that the development of the driverless car accelerated because of me. Of course, if I hadn't invested in Karis, it would have been released by another company a few years later. If I had earned a few years of time, wouldn't there be any problems? You're welcome. Korea would have been doing nothing until then, and the same situation would have occurred. Although Korea is the 11th largest economy in the world, there are many markets with higher incomes than Korea. Carlos was also busy targeting the US and European markets. Therefore, Korea was far behind. As the world embraces autonomous and driverless cars, can Korea alone continue to oppose it? If you boil your hair, your ears will naturally ripen. So there is no need to push yourself to use ride-sharing or driverless cars until you run into conflicts with politicians or transportation operators and get insulted from all sides. However, this incident changed my mind. Driverless cars are the trend of the times. No one can stop this. Developed countries are already in a hurry to switch to electric vehicles and driverless vehicles. Something happened anyway. It would be better to adapt quickly and get ahead. So what do we do now? Should I jump in ready to be insulted again? Or should I just pretend I don't know? Taejayu said. What are you worried about? You're swearing anyway. It is not. By the way, didn't you invest in our carpooling company? It's called Full Riding and K Company invested it. It was co-founded by 3 Korean university students. Do-suk Young from the Department of Mathematics, Hyun-kyu Kim from the Department of Computer Engineering, and Baekhyun Cho from the Department of Visual Design. Young Do-suk is Sang-yeep Senior and Junior, so we met once before. By the way, it is also the first company to move into a shared office OTK gate. The reason why this has not become a big issue is because the scale of full riding is still small and not a target of the taxi industry. But if you allow ride-sharing or carpooling, why do taxis fail? You said if there is already a competitor in a state of oversupply and declining profits, they cannot survive. That is the position of taxi companies. Aren't taxi drivers supposed to work in carpool? Or taxi drivers directly jump into ride-sharing? Well, if driverless taxis appear, All transport jobs will disappear anyway. But unlike logistics trucks, taxis still have time. In order not to be taken over by foreign companies in the future, we must first prepare. I crossed my arms and pondered. As Taekyu said, it is necessary to separate taxi companies and taxi drivers. Individual taxi drivers, corporate taxi companies, corporate taxi drivers and taxi union groups. It seems that the taxi industry is opposed to it with one voice, but if you look closely at the interests, there is a slight difference. I called Sanjiop Sr. as her CEO Shiloh. How much did we invest in full riding? 10 billion won. Later Golden Gate also invested 1 billion more. They seem to be working hard to expand their business. I see. I then called the PR team leader. Give me some data on Korean ride-sharing companies and carpooling companies. Then team leader Jong Ki-hong asked carefully. Are you going to go there? This is the situation where there is a commotion because of ride-sharing. If I make a full-fledged entry into ride-sharing or carpooling, the taxi industry will not stand still. I smiled faintly. I'll start thinking about it a bit. I got in the car and headed to the OTK gate. It was Gangnam anyway, so we arrived within 5 minutes of departure. The shared office space, which started by renting 6 floors in a building owned by Golden Gate, has now grown to 11 floors. Even now, whenever the contracts of companies that have moved into this building expire, they are being expanded and replaced with shared offices. In order to go upstairs, you first had to go through the entrance of the lobby on the first floor. I parked and went up to the lobby. The staff greeted me kindly and asked, "What made you visit?" "I want to meet the CEO of Pool Riding." Read more at wuxiax.com. Did you make an appointment? No. I'm just here, so can I ask you a question? Hey. What is your name? Tell me Kong Jin-hoo. Yes. Jin-hoo Kong. Yes. Who? The employees who checked my face got up all at once in surprise. Ugh. Phew. What did you come here for? You said it. I'm here to meet the CEO of Pool Riding. Oh yes. Would you like to follow me? I went up to the lounge first with the staff. The lounge located on the 23rd floor is like a cafe, and the panoramic view of Gangnam can be seen through the open glass wall. I've been here before it opened, but this is the first time I've been here since startups moved in. Working people chatted over complimentary coffee and beer. Some of them worked by the window with their laptops and tablets spread out because of the cramped office space. Foreigners were also briefly seen. Some people recognized my face. I think that person looks a bit like Kong Jin-hoo. What are you talking about all of a sudden? Why is CEO Kong Jin-hoo coming here? Come on, wait. I think that's right. Hey, maybe. What? Really? Everyone was cringing, but one person swung a greeting. Good morning. CEO Kong Jin-hoo, right? Yes. Good morning. Then in an instant the people in the lounge rushed in. I shook hands with them and took pictures with them. Thanks to you, I was able to save money and start a business. We have raised new investments this time. Thank you, sir. Hearing this, I feel proud. I grabbed a cup of coffee and headed downstairs to the office space. In the modular glass-walled office, young people my age were working hard. Of these, there is no law that prevents companies like Gubel and Carlos from being born. It would be better if she showed her foresight before that so I could invest. Pool Riding gradually expanded the office and now it has grown to a size used by 20 people, and it currently occupies the largest space in the OTK gate. Before I came, I installed the Pool Riding app and looked around. The program itself is not very complicated. All you have to do is match the driver who owns the vehicle with the passenger who needs it. A program like this can be easily made by any company if they put their mind to it. However, not everyone can succeed even if they create the same program. In the carpooling market, leading companies such as Laxi and 2plus are active. As the leading companies already dominate the market, Full Riding is having a hard time increasing the number of users. There are numerous ride-sharing companies in the US, but many use eVare. The reason is that it is easiest to call a car as there are the most drivers registered with eVare. Newly registered drivers also choose eVare. This is because most consumers are looking for eVare. Even if you launch a better service later, people don't move easily. I don't know if there are merits such as being incredibly cheap. Although it is behind in the number of users, Full Riding tends to respond quickly and accurately to user experience (UX) and consumer needs. If continuous investment is made, it will be able to grow even bigger in the future. Good morning. Everyone was surprised when I visited unannounced. Yang Do-suk greeted each other. Hello, President. A few days ago I saw a lot of performance on the bridge. He's from the same school as me. And he also started his own business and stopped his studies. When he was in school he met briefly in the club room and he had no idea that he would become a relationship in this way. Since this place only has a workspace, it was moved to the conference room because it was not suitable for meetings. OTK Gate, a shared office, has a conference room, a studio for filming, a production room with 3D printers and expensive equipment, and a sleeping room and shower room where you can take a nap. It is usually operated by receiving reservations from tenant companies. Everyone doesn't look very good. The reason is guessable. Maybe it's because of the backlash from the taxi industry. Yang Do-suk sighed and said, originally we were going to receive an additional 2 billion won from KCG Asia, but this time the Liberal People's Party proposed a bill to ban carpooling and it was cancelled. If the law changes, the carpooling business that was previously legal will become illegal overnight. In this case the business must be completely shut down. He asked with a worried look. Isn't the bill really going to pass? I do not know. It will not be easy to pass the bill unless the opposition and opposition parties agree on it. However, to a different extent, other parties are also conscious of the taxi industry's vote. This is the reason why the discussion has not progressed even though most of the people are in favor of ride sharing. I said the purpose of coming here. So, by the way, I would like to propose an investment. Everyone's eyes widened at my words. Investment. Actually, it should be an acquisition. I would like to acquire 100% of the shares of Full Riding by K Company, including the stake in Golden Gate. Yes. Yang Do-suk was taken aback by the sudden proposal and co-founder Cho Baek-hyun asked. You're going to launch driverless cars later anyway, so why do you want to invest in carpooling? We are planning to invest not only in the carpooling business, but in the mobility industry as a whole. I think it would be good for Full Riding to lead the business. What can be obtained through the service is the subscribers and their data. Where, when, who, and how they are used is gathered to become big data. By using this big data, it is possible to determine when, where, and how many vehicles will be dispatched. Even if the era of driverless cars opens, big data is absolutely necessary. That's why other ride-sharing companies are working hard on collecting data. On the other hand, Korea has not even started yet. Hyunji Kim asked carefully. What will be the acquisition amount? I nodded. In consultation with Golden Gate, we calculated the total value of the company at 15 billion won. We also agreed to sell the shares. Ugh. 15 billion. You don't have to pay all of this. Since K Company invested 1 billion won the other day and secured a 32% stake, you only have to pay for the remaining stake. Everyone looked unbelievable. Startups often receive a certain amount of equity in exchange for a small salary. Equity is just a piece of paper when a company goes bankrupt, but if it goes public or is acquired by a large company later, the jackpot will explode. In Full Riding, except for the stakes acquired by K Company and Golden Gate, the remaining shares are shared by the co-founders and employees. So everyone here is a shareholder. If you received even 1% of the stake, you would receive 150 million. Yang Do-suk asked, stuttering. No, what if I refuse? Startups are moving in different directions. In some cases they are acquired by an existing large corporation and receive various supports to grow stably, while in others, they increase their size and go public on their own. Whichever one you choose is up to you. It doesn't matter. However, we plan to enter the market, so we plan to acquire another carpooling company or launch our own service. This is one of the most common methods used when negotiating an acquisition. In the case of the acquired company, if it does not comply with the offer, it will have to face a competitor with huge capital. When I finished talking, I got up. I will give you a day to discuss. Let me know when you decide. I went to work with Taekyu. Taekyu asked, do you think you would agree? If you say no, you die. There are plenty of companies that you can buy if you have money. Why don't we take over Laxi, the #1 player in the industry? There has already been an investment from Redstone Group. While domestic conglomerates were passive in investment in startups and acquisitions, foreign companies and private equity funds quickly invested large amounts to buy shares. That's why we see a lot of potential for growth. In fact, There are not only one or two startups that grow into unicorns despite all kinds of regulations. While I was waiting patiently around lunchtime, Doo-suk Young came to my office. I will accept the offer. Did others agree? Yes. If even one of the co-founders disagreed, I was going to say no, and everyone agreed. Taekyu nodded his head and muttered in a small voice. It must have been too much to refuse. I contacted Golden Gate and a lawyer from the legal team came over. You can discuss the legal process with this person. Ellie held out her hand. Good morning. This is Ellie Kim, the first legal team leader at Golden Gate's Korean branch. Oh yes. Good morning. Yang Doo-suk carefully took his hand. His face turned red and his eyes couldn't meet properly. Our legal team leader must be pretty. The signing ceremony for the acquisition of K Company and pool riding was held at Salon Hotel in Namsan, and K Company CEO Park Sang-yeep, pool riding CEO Yang Doo-suk, and OTK Company CEO Kong Jin-woo attended together. CEO Park Sang-yeep revealed his future plans at this meeting. K-Mobility, launched with a focus on full riding, will be reborn as a comprehensive mobility service that provides various mobility services such as call taxis, ride-sharing and car-sharing. To this end, we plan to take over a taxi company in the metropolitan area and start the taxi business. Reporters gathered at the scene were surprised by the unexpected announcement. I thought you were only entering the ride-sharing market, but you are entering the taxi market yourself. We will also launch a ride-sharing service exclusively for foreigners by hiring drivers who can speak foreign languages to target foreign tourists. Foreign tourists are an exception to the ban on driver placement. Therefore, it is possible to launch products with differentiated prices and services. Next, CEO Kong Jin-woo spoke. I'm not going to say much, I'm just going to tell you two things. First, abolition of private payment. Second, I will not refuse to ride. That is all. Launching K-Mobility as a subsidiary of K Company. Acquired by Carpool Company full riding for 15 billion won. K-Mobility, a taxi company in the metropolitan area. Do you want to enter the taxi industry directly? Jin-ho Kong enters the ride-sharing market. As announced, K Company acquired and merged several small taxi companies in Seoul and the metropolitan area. K-Taxi plans to avoid competition with existing taxis by intensively dispatching taxis during times when taxis are scarce, and to operate mainly by calling. In foreign countries, it is often the case that the service takes a call, whereas in Korea, it is more common to pick up customers while roaming the streets. As a result, there is a situation where one cannot catch a taxi, but the taxi is idle on the other. The roads are also very clogged with taxis lining up or roaming around. So, why haven't taxi companies thought about improving this situation? The reason, of course, is the payroll. The customers of taxi companies are not taxi passengers, but drivers who rent taxis. So there was absolutely no reason to invest in developing a calling app. We will set a basic salary of 2 million won for our employees, and pay incentives according to sales. We also allow carpooling and other ride-sharing operations using private or company vehicles outside of business hours. When this fact became known, the taxi industry was shocked. Taxi companies gathered at the OTK Company headquarters and the National Assembly to protest against it. Are you saying that if a large corporation like OTK Company enters the taxi business, all small and medium-sized taxi companies like us should die? Does it make sense for a large corporation to enter this alleyway? OTK Company guarantees the right to survive in the taxi industry. The government should immediately designate taxis as a suitable business for small and medium-sized enterprises, and ban large corporations from entering the taxi industry. If our demands are not accepted, we will continue the struggle against the government with a full-scale strike. However, as public opinion about the taxi company has deteriorated due to the last incident, netizens laughed. The impact is a bit weak. How about a single boss jumping into the Han River? They even take over a taxi company and provide it legally. Is there any problem with this? If you say ride-sharing, it is illegal to transport passengers by private car. So if you say you'll do it by taxi, you're saying it's an infringement of the alley business. I'm just saying don't do anything. Taxi companies strongly opposed it, but the taxi drivers responded a little differently. They say that they will implement a monthly salary system to guarantee basic wages and improve working conditions, but no taxi driver dislikes them. Read more at wuxiax.com. Actually, this was from the beginning. However, due to the backlash of taxi companies and complicated interests, even the discussion did not proceed properly. But that's exactly what K Company did. When taxi drivers got together, they talked about K-Taxi. There aren't many customers these days, so it's hard to pay the private payments. In that case, wouldn't it be better to get paid to enter the K-Taxi? If you fill in the basic working hours, you can open the rest of the business freely? Then I can earn 3 million won a month. Aren't we supposed to move to K-Taxi before it's too late? Representative Jean Baekhyun of the Liberal National Party raised her voice in the National Assembly. We need to make taxis a good business for small businesses and ban them from entering large companies, she said. Let the National Assembly take the lead and protect the alleyways and the right to survival of small and medium-sized enterprises. This was nothing more than a copy of the taxi company's claims. Undoubtedly, he is a former union member and is known for his close relationship with the representatives of taxi companies. The Liberal People's Party actively defended the taxi industry by setting the carpool ban bill as a party argument, but this time it showed a passive appearance. Although taxi companies have a lot of influence, the tickets are actually held by taxi drivers. In a situation where taxi drivers welcome K Company's entry, it is not appropriate to take sides with taxi companies. But at this point, another bad thing happened. In the process of investigating the president who ordered a sit-down on the bridge and the death, the situation in which a taxi group handed over illegal political funds to Representative Jean Baekhyun was caught. Reporters rushed to Parliament immediately. Have you ever received illegal political funds? What do you think of this revelation? So, have you been representing the taxi industry? Representative Jean Baekhyun flatly denied it. If I receive even a single penny of illegal political funds, I will seize in front of Seoul Station. Hey, he's a samurai. Why are you wearing a harpoon? Was your father pro-Japanese? No, but why do you split in someone else's constituency? If you want to take a break, shouldn't someone hit your head from behind to relieve the pain? Is this what Assemblyman Lee Young-hai wants to do? People say they are going to die, but they are saying things like this. Even if you pretend to be kind with words, this is the nature of leftists. Really dirty. If you die, why die? If you don't get money, there's nothing to do. Maybe the males don't trust Representative Jean Baekhyun? Representative Jean Baekhyun insisted on his innocence until the end, refusing to comply with the prosecution's summons. However, when a handbook appeared stating that she had delivered the money, and a list of political lobbyists was revealed, she was utterly cornered. The list included several members of the New Politics Party as well as the Liberal National Party. This meant that the taxi industry lobbied the political world in all directions. Members of parliament who were on the list were busy avoiding the media. A bill banning carpooling was blocked without passing the Judiciary Committee, and taxi companies vomited their anger saying, "How much money have we spent so far?" When Pool Riding changed its name to K-Mobility and relaunched the app, the number of subscribers skyrocketed and the server went down for a while. Due to the successful investment in the past, live ammunition was overflowing. It is possible to take over the entire taxi industry with only the funds that K Company has. The key is to make the most of the data accumulated by the previous full riding. We decided to focus on the time and place where taxi demand is concentrated and efficiently dispatch taxis to maximize profits. This is a method that other taxi companies have not tried before. For passengers concerned about crime, the app has also added the ability to report directly to the police and send a GPS location with a specific touch gesture. One of the strengths of startups is that the decision-making structure is fast and simple. In addition, K-Mobility quickly responded to consumer demands by adding services or removing unresponsive services. At the same time, Lost Fantasy M performed a major update, and K-Mobility attracted advertisements from OTK Games and attached a Lost Fantasy M billboard to taxis. Taejayu said, "Why don't we advertise before handing out character cards to taxi users? It releases a new card every month and gives it to you if you ride it a certain number of times. Then why don't you use it often to get it?" I was dumbfounded and asked, "Who in the world takes a taxi to get it? Trust me and try." Ting pushed hard. Well, if the vice president wants to do it, he has to do it. When K-Mobility said it was going to hold an event to present a Lost Fantasy character card, the game site went into an uproar. Oh, after all, otaku company. Otaku taxi. I don't go out of the house often because I'm playing games, so I don't even have to take a taxi. However, you have to ride to collect character cards. You have to leave the house and ask him to come back home. From today, only take K-Taxi. Do I need to sign up for K-Mobility first? There were people in the world who took a taxi to get a character card. As the number of subscribers skyrocketed, K-Mobility announced that it would continue to increase the number of taxis by taking over small businesses. In fact, given the size of the Korean market, it is difficult to achieve a large return on investment. The deficit this year alone is expected to exceed 500 billion won. Nevertheless, it is well worth the investment. More important than immediate profits are platform preoccupation and securing big data. The sharing economy and mobility market will be tens of times larger than it is today in the next 10 years. However, even if the market grows, not everyone can survive. Taxi companies still protested, but somehow the politicians were quiet. After the so-called taxi gate, when the lobby list was released, it seemed to avoid mentioning taxis as much as possible. I don't know if it's illegal or expedient in the first place. What can I do to prevent legal entry by taking over a taxi company? Consumers like it and taxi drivers like it. Only existing taxi companies are against it. Still, there was no movement for change. Taxi companies that have lost drivers and customers have their feet caught on fire. Companies that were difficult to manage went out of business or were merged with other companies, and companies of some size quickly switched to a partial salary system and caught those who wanted to leave. Local taxi companies worked together to create a calling app or improve service quality. The taxi industry said it would make efforts to eliminate refusal to ride and reckless driving. Why haven't you done something that can be done so easily if you put your mind to it? I was playing because there were no competitors. Things haven't been completely cleared up and there's still some confusion, but it's good to know that they've opened the door to a ride-sharing service. I went to work and received a report on the overall business situation. Unlike the meeting a few months ago, one seat was vacant. Henry's vacancy was also quite large for work. He's been looking for a replacement, but he's having a hard time finding the right one. You can't bring back someone who's focused on childcare. At the end of the meeting, Sanjiop Sr. said, "These days the global economy seems to be in a downtrend." Everyone agrees with that statement. In fact, the bad economy was shown by various indicators. Today, that's all. As I was about to get up, I felt my eyes spin. I touched the table with my hands to avoid falling. "What is it?" "No, I got dizzy for a second." Jong Ki-hong, the team leader, said, "Come to think of it, it looks like you've been sweating a bit since before." I touched my forehead. "Seems to be a bit hot. Why are you doing this all of a sudden?" Taekyu grabbed my shoulder and shouted, "Friend, you must not die. It's a mild cold." Yes. It is said that the number of cold patients increased a lot because it was the changing season. It's not serious, you should get some injections, take medicine and rest for a day or so. The place where I am lying now is the VIP room of Seosang Hospital. It is a place where the CEOs of chaebols are hospitalized, so there is a separate shower room and a reception room inside. Dedicated medical staff were waiting nearby, and bodyguards stood guard outside the hospital room. The reason I was hospitalized like this, even though it was only a cold, was because I decided to take this opportunity to undergo a detailed checkup because of the worries of the people around me and my mother's fire. Breaking news. OTK company So admitted to Seosang Hospital. I once collapsed and was hospitalized at an American airport. According to the testimony of exclusive people around him, he usually coughs frequently and looks tired. Could there be something wrong with the brain? The medical staff of Seosang Hospital are completely silent about the state after the earthquake. The number of deaths in their 20s due to overwork and stress increases. How could you make up an article like this just because you were admitted to the hospital? I'm not going to Korea Jureji class. Taeyong nodded his head. Did you give me an advertisement? I am hostile to the conservative press, and I am not particularly friendly with the progressive press. Because they don't advertise on either side. Typically, chaebols spend huge amounts of money on advertising in the media. The news media advertise that a person who ate salt turns on water is bound to write good articles. Therefore, the Korean media rarely write articles critical of chaebols unless they cause social issues. Then you might think that it is okay to give an advertisement, but even if you try to advertise, there is nothing you can do. It's not like we don't have enough money to hire individual investors. This is also true of RCK Brothers, the largest private equity fund in Korea. In a situation where institutional investors such as Temasek ABP and GPFG are lining up, there is no need to publicize your name. Investors come to the fund with money as long as the returns are good. Taekyu and Sang Yeep Sr. looked around the hospital room and admired. The hospital room is really nice. The late chairman Iokwan Lim was also hospitalized here. How much is the hospital bed per day? I looked at Sanjeop Sr. and asked. Why did you come? The CEO is hospitalized, of course he should come. I bought some juice, so drink some. It's a juice made from purely squeezing fruit without burning anything else. I got an injection and took some medicine, but my head is a bit hazy. Not long ago, I remembered a story I heard from Senior Ki Hong. You say you're dating an Australian model these days? Sanjeop Senpai waved his hand at my words. It's just getting to know each other. Would he even think so? How did you meet? We met by chance while going to see an advertisement shoot. I'm from Melbourne, you know I lived in Australia when I was a kid. I said absurdly. Your senior was from Sydney. For reference, the two cities are about 1,000 kilometers apart. What does that matter? Being on the same island is important. Wasn't Australia a continent? Even the kids in Australia knew everything after Gangjin. There are not one or two models that I want to introduce to you. Okay, let me introduce you to Taekyu. If it's our deputy representative, the models will line up. If you are interested, would you like to meet me? Kyung shook his head. I'm fine. I asked Taekyu. By the way, what happened to Min Ha-young? What's going on? A former high school classmate of Taekyu, she once fell into the wrong path of coin multi-step. However, thanks to Taekyu's help, she escaped safely, and she is currently drawing a webtoon set in a lost fantasy world. It seems that we still see each other occasionally. Do you think it will go well? I'm good at drawing, so I think you just need to look at the story. No, not a webtoon. Min Ha-young does not know that Taekyu is the vice president of OTK company. But he must have guessed that he was in a high position. Sanjeop Sr. went back to work and Taekyu went out to eat dinner. Not long after, Ellie came to her room. Are you okay? It's just a mild cold. Ellie said as if giving her pint glass. If you were sick, you should have gone to the hospital sooner rather than waiting. I thought I would get better with a little rest. At my age, if I endure it in moderation, it will get better. Ellie sat next to her and touched my forehead with her hand. The fever is still there. How long do I have to go back to work? I paid half to take care of you. Do you know how to nurse? Ellie said confidently. Well, let's start with the nurse's uniform, shall we? Oh, that's a very good idea. As I nodded her head hard, Ellie rolled her eyes. It was a joke. Keep in mind that when you are sick, you should rest and not do anything else. Yeah. He came straight from the company, so he was wearing a black suit and tied his hair up as usual. Even with only light basic makeup, her beauty shone. If you hug me for a moment, I think you'll get better soon. Ellie firmly shook her head. No. When you're sick, you get better quickly if you hug me. Don't say nonsense. It's true, that's why her mother hugs and comforts her baby when she's sick. There are also studies showing that human body temperature is helpful for psychological stability and treatment. Where did you do that research? I said whatever came to mind. I think it was probably Johns Hopkins University. Perhaps it was logical. Ellie could not easily refute it even though she had a questionable expression on her face. Then wait a minute. You can't do nonsense. Read more at wuxiax.com. Eli took off his coat and lay down next to him. Even though she didn't put on perfume, she smelled nice. We stood still, hugging each other for a while. What do you think? When I was sick. At that time, Jinhoo took me to the hotel. Come to think of it, we had our first kiss that day. A lot has happened since then. We laughed as we talked about the past. About to stop laughing, Ellie said. Would you like to kiss me? You may catch a cold. In that case, Jinhoo can take care of you. Then what? Thank you. I was about to kiss him while hugging him, but suddenly the door to the hospital room swung open. Friend, I'm back. The guests also came. Next came Hyunju's older sister and Henry, along with Chairman Im Jin-young and President Im Soo-mi. Hyunju Nuna looked at us and she made an absurd expression on her face. I'm sick, so I'm doing everything I can. Ellie was startled and got her body up. Oh no. This is because Jinhoo asked me to hug him for a while. Taeyong widened his eyes. What did you say? Did she ask for a hug? Oh no, it's not. Come on everyone, let's go. Let's leave for 30 minutes so we can continue what we're doing. Then he squinted his eyes at us. It's like saying, did I do well? People went out again and the door to the hospital room was closed. Ellie, who looked at me with her hands trembling for a moment, picked up her pillow with her angry expression. Come on, wait. That patient. It's just a cold. While I was in the hospital, several people visited and phone calls came from all over the place. There were even calls from the White House. You have to stay in good shape until you receive the Nobel Prize. Did you know? Yes. His Nobel Prize. You shouldn't be vigilant because you're young. The most important thing for health is your diet. Seoul only drink Coke and Diet Coke. Considering your health, isn't it better to just drink water? Warren Boat and Ronald, why do Americans love Coke so much? As a result of the comprehensive examination, the body was in excellent health. Even so, I'm still in my early 20s. It will take a few more decades to be in a wheelchair like the presidents who appear before the prosecution. The cold was completely healed in 2 days and I was discharged from the hospital and headed straight to work. The staff greeted me with applause. So it seems like he came back from some incurable disease. When I was discharged from the hospital, some media seemed to be very sorry. Were you hoping for an obituary? But the obituary came from another place. Emergency. Former Chairman Han Min-koo dies. Breaking news. Former Chairman Eun Sung-cha Han Min-koo died today at 7 a.m. due to worsening condition. Eun Sung-cha Group is engulfed in shock. The will is private. The funeral will be held at Yonsong Hospital. Born as the eldest son of Eun Sung Group founder Han Young-ju, Chairman, Han Min-koo separated the Eun Sung car from the Eun Sung Group and brought it as his own when a dispute arose between his brothers. After that, he raised his quality and expanded exports, growing Eun Sung Tea into the second largest group in the business world with Eun Sung MD, Eun Sung Steel, Yonsong RT Gloros and Reno Shan. No one can deny that he brought the Korean automobile industry to a world-class level. However, it was evaluated as a regret that it did not respond in time to the transition to a future car. Chairman Han Min-koo took responsibility for the cover-up of the airbag defect and resigned after that, and since then he has not appeared in public or in the media. His cause of death was a brain tumor. He has been ill for a long time and it is said that he could not speak properly for a while, so the people around him were already preparing their hearts. I remembered the last time we met. Were you still battling the disease? The political and business circles all expressed their condolences for the death of a giant who has led the Korean automobile industry. Like most of the chaebols, the ball is big and excessive, but generally only good things are said about the dead. Incense burners were set up everywhere, including the headquarters of Yonsong Tea, and people continued to come. The mortuary was set up at Yonsong Hospital, where the deceased was last admitted. Taekyu asked, "Are you going to visit?" "I will go." Condolences from the business and political circles are already continuing. I don't know if it was in the past, but in a situation where Karis and Yonsong Cha are working together, I have to go. I had a strange feeling. My house was ruined and my father died because of Yonsong. Even if Han Min-koo, who was the chairman at the time, did not directly give orders, it cannot be said that he was not responsible. And I took over Karis from Eun Sung Motors and raised it into a company that surpassed Eun Sung Motors. On the other hand, Yonsong Motors faced great difficulties due to the failure of the hydrogen car, which it had ambitiously pursued. It was Carlos who saved the silver car. The stock price of Eun Sung Motors, which had plummeted due to numerous bad news, succeeded in rebounding after joining hands with Carlos. Still, I haven't recovered to my previous highs. The silver car requires the technology of Karis, and the car needs the infrastructure of the silver car. Production capacity of millions of units, worldwide sales network, and know-how in inventory management and after-sales service, etc. Karis can find a partner other than Yonsong Cha, but Karis is absolutely necessary for Eun Sung Cha. The electric vehicle industrial complex created by the joint venture is also centered on the technology of Karis. As it is highly dependent on technology, the difference between silver and gender is as dependent on Karis. What would your father say if he saw this? And what did Chairman Han Min-koo think while watching this? Following Chairman Il-kwon Lim, the death of Chairman Min-koo Han was nothing more than announcing the departure of the second generation of chaebols who have led the Korean economy. Most of those who still remain are either in the process of succession or have already completed it. I headed to the mortuary with take you past 12 p.m. Perhaps it was because he had informed them that he was leaving, and even though it was late, the resident Chan Young-han was still there. You will be very heartbroken. Thank you for coming. When we first met, I thought he was quite big, but now he seems a little small. Maybe this is the difference in perspective. We paid our condolences, sat down and ate yakgajang. Taekyu said, pointing to soju and beer. What are you going to do? Let's have soju. We both drank a bottle of soju. As I was about to get up after eating, Chairman Chan Young-han approached me and handed me an envelope. After my father passed away, I told him to deliver it to the representative. I took it and ripped it open on the way home. To CEO Kang Jin-hoo. First of all, I would like to apologize once again for President Kang Dong-hyun's work. Everything is my fault and I am responsible for everything. After retirement, I looked back on my life. I can't say that I didn't pursue personal success, but I also have the pride that Unsung Motors and the Korean automobile industry have grown to this point. But my role ended there. It must have been anger that he remained there even though he knew the role was over. Korean cars should never collapse like this. Everything in the future depends on CEO Kang Jin-hoo. I sat in the living room and drank beer alone. My head was cluttered with many thoughts. After receiving my call, Ellie drove her car straight from the hotel. Sorry for being late. I'm bored of drinking alone. It's okay. What about Taekyu? I'm sleeping. It's another beer. There are many good wines in the wine cellar. In the wine cellar on one side of the kitchen, wines worth millions of won per bottle are lined up. Most of them are gifts from all over the world. It is said that the destination of alcohol is wine, but I do not know the taste of wine yet. Do you want to change as you get older? Unlike me, Ellie likes to drink wine. Can I get you a bottle of wine? No. Today I'll have a beer too. Ellie sat next to me and grabbed a can of beer. What were you thinking? I just thought about it when I was younger. At the time, I never imagined that I would become the CEO and make such money. Chaebols now have been chaebols since birth. But I am not. One day I saw foreknowledge and as I was investing I happened to come here. Hundreds of Johnny, the richest person in the world, doesn't really make sense. It's not like it's held in cash right away, and even if you use it from now on, you won't be able to use it all until you die. What was Jinhoo's dream when he was young? When you were young? Well, just what? Ellie was curious. What? Come on, tell me. You can't listen and laugh. I won't laugh. I promise. I was an economist. Ellie's eyes twinkled as if in a strange way. Are you an economist? Why did she have such a dream as a child? She felt embarrassed and scratched my cheek. She said, adults always say that the economy is difficult, complicated. It's cool to find out and analyze it. She was also curious about concepts such as inflation and deflation, and wanted to become an economist and give lectures. Well, it later changed to taking over her father's business. Ellie nodded her head. I think Jinhoo would have done well if she became an economist. She said if she did, she might have won the Nobel Prize in economics. I burst out laughing. Well, if it was given to her, she wouldn't have declined. It's not technically a real Nobel Prize, but where is it? Apparently, Western economics is more developed and given to mainstream economists. The winners are mostly Americans and Europeans. If Asians take it, that alone will be a huge issue. I drank beer and asked, what was Ellie's dream when she was young? Well, it's a secret. This makes me more curious. I told you. Come on, tell me. Ellie opened her mouth as if she couldn't help it. When I was very young, my dream was to be a ballerina. I was surprised by that. Are you a ballerina? Have you ever studied ballet? Originally, girls learn once when they are young. Is it similar to how boys go to taekwondo when they are young? I thought that my body was somehow flexible, but I must have been hiding this secret. When did you quit? Why did you quit? There were a lot of kids who were better and harder than me. Around the age of 12, my body shape began to change. What if the body shape changes? Naturally, the gaze was directed to a specific area. Then Eli rolled her eyes. Where are you looking now? Oh no. And there are a lot of other things I want to do. Exercise and study. It's about finding another dream. Yes. I still like to watch ballet performances. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to be on stage. I'm glad you quit. Why? If she had become a ballerina, I wouldn't have met her. Ellie reached out and touched my cheek. That is unknown. Even if Jin Hu became an economist and I became a ballerina, wouldn't she have stumbled across it somewhere? By the way, John Maynard Keynes, one of the most famous economists of the 21st century, married a Russian ballerina. Although she had no children, she is said to have lived happily ever after. Ellie rested her head on my shoulder, she said. I don't know what I'm thinking about, but I do what I want to do. One day, everyone will know Jinhu's true feelings. Some things are not something I can avoid just because I want to avoid them. As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility, with great money comes great responsibility. As long as I have a large fortune, I also have to bear the responsibilities. And whether I like it or not, the responsibility continues. So Chairman Han Min-koo must have said that to me. I grabbed her hand tightly. Thank you. When I wake up tomorrow, I think I know what to do. I went to work and told Sanjiop Sr. She said, didn't you say that you will have a business meeting at the Blue House in 3 days? Huh. The list is out. Sanjiop Sr. also participates as a representative of K Company. Although K Company has grown in size, it is not enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with a teenage group. Even so, it must be said that she called for me to be included on the invitation list. Ask me if I can attend. At my words, Sanjiop had a surprised expression on his face. Read more at wuxiax.com. Really? Yes. I will attend. Hey. I'll talk right away. Take you asked. Then why are you holding such a business meeting? It's to show the people. The president encourages business people to invest, and business people respond accordingly and promise to invest. Of course, this is not to create an investment that did not exist, but to inflate the investment that was originally planned to be implemented as much as possible. Therefore, the meeting is a place where politicians who want to show economic performance and businessmen who respond to it show the public to the public. It's kind of like a masquerade. Well, if you think about it, the ball is also a part of political action. It's not like the nobles were spending their money to party. Taekyu crossed his arms and said, it's a masquerade. Can I wear a Guy Fawkes mask? Can you? Will you ever be misunderstood for coming to blow up the Blue House? It is not easy to change the attendee list as it has already been decided. However, the Blue House immediately added the name of Kang Jin-hu. Unlike ordinary chaebols that maintain close ties with politicians, Kang Jin-hu has avoided contact with politicians as much as possible. This is the first time that I have attended a meeting hosted by the president. There was a lot of speculation in the media about the purpose of the attendance. Members of the Liberal National Party expressed their displeasure, and Representative Ma Sang-tae took the initiative as the representative and shouted. The revision of the attendance list that has already been decided because of Hannah Gangjin shows how much this administration pays attention to the chaebols. Do you want to spread the rumor that the government is borrowing money to bring you here? Governments should abide by principles and procedures, not conform to popularity. While the president enjoys eating and chatting with the chaebols, the working class economy is suffering greatly. We must do politics for the common people. Our lawmaker is in a coma again, TT. Haven't you been hospitalized yet? I speak as a supporter of the Liberal People's Party. We strongly insist that Lee Jong-hai and Ma Sang-sang be sent to the new political party for the revival of the conservatives. I need to set up an Oriental medicine hospital near Dr. Ma Sang-tae's house. That's right. Does it make sense to change the list because of Jin Hu Kong? When Park Si-hyung was president, he didn't even go near the Blue House, but now that he's a left-wing president, he runs right away. Yi, where are you going with your left-wing nature? No, I have to call you. I didn't call, how are you? If you suddenly go to the Blue House, they think they open the door, ha ha ha. But why are you meeting Hyo Chang-min? Is there anything Kang Jin-hu has to say that he regrets? To be honest, Kang Jin-hu is not at the level to play with the Korean president. Right? Wouldn't it have to be Ronald's level? You've grown a lot after Kang Jin. If it was where you are now, you wouldn't have dared to touch Park Si-hyung. There is a saying that this is the middle-income trap. Growth is rapid in the early stages of economic development, but growth stagnates after reaching a certain level. In the end, if it fails to take off as a developed country, it will remain as a middle-income country or rather fall. Fortunately, Korea succeeded in breaking into the national income of $30,000. At this point, it can be said that it has risen to the ranks of advanced countries. Although there are still many problems to be solved politically, economically, and socially. In any case, this is a terrific thing. Excluding Western countries such as the United States, Europe and Australia and Japan, which was the first to modernize in Asia, how many countries with a population of 50 million or more have a national income of more than $30,000? While those countries have already achieved economic development in the past, Korea has achieved this level of growth in only a few decades. But it is still too early to be reassured. As Korea has a short history of capital accumulation compared to other advanced countries, it is likely to collapse rapidly when economic growth stops. In order not to do that, we must continue to grow. Taekyu rubbed his eyes and said, "Since when have you been so patriot?" I asked absurdly. "Then are you going to be Maekuk?" The original arm is bent inward. If possible, I hope that Korea will do better than other countries. At least I have to do what I can. Who knows or who doesn't? Taekyu crossed his arms and nodded his head. Originally, the path of the absolute is lonely. I headed to the Blue House with Sanjeop Sr. I've been to the White House, but this is the first time I've been to the Blue House. Again, a check was conducted from the entrance. Chairman Im Jin-young as well as most of the top 10 group officials were there. Chairman Han Chan-young was absent due to his father's death, and Chaseo Hyun-hong Lim Un-sung attended instead. I exchanged greetings with Light Group Vice Chairman Dong Min-dong and Shinseji Group Vice Chairman Jang Yong-cheol in turn. When I first revealed my identity in Korea, the eyes of other chaebol groups were not so good. He probably thought of him as a kid who made good money through speculation. But it didn't take long for that idea to change completely. While chaebol groups struggled in new industries, the companies invested by OTK company grew rapidly. Who would have thought that Carlos would devour the silver star? Now both the industry and the financial world are paying close attention to the movement of OTK company. And that's how my position went up. History and tradition among the chaebols, the rich are the best in the market. In fact, Seosong Group, which initially joined hands with OTK company, is gaining success and success together. But other groups are struggling. And it turned out to be the stock price. Surprisingly, our CK Brothers chairman Ryu Cheoljun also attended. I know I don't often attend events like this. He smiled and said, "I thought it was for nothing, but I am glad that CO Kong Jin who also came." I said gladly. "Did the president come alone?" "Byung-do, that friend has some work in China." The deputy chief who was with me at that time did not come. My friend hates selling faces. After sitting for a while, the president came in. President Ha Chong-min approached businessmen and shook hands with each other. Then he reached out to me as well. "Ah, CO Kong Jin who also came. It's really nice to see you. Good morning." After saying goodbye, we sat down again. Staff delivered food to the table. The menu is bibimbap. It is said that the rice and vegetables inside are from Paldo. President Ha Chong-min said, "Bibimbap has the best taste by combining different ingredients. Like this bibimbap, I hope that the government and businesses will come together as one to get through the current economic situation." It was a clear and snarky statement. After the meal was over, coffee and tea were served and a full-fledged meeting began. It's not a closed meeting, it's a public meeting with media cameras. Again, the CEOs of chaebols expressed their ambitious ambitions to do their best to invest and create jobs. He did not say that the prospects for the future were gloomy or that the economic situation was not good. The economy is psychological and self-fulfilling prophecies come true. If you reduce consumption and spending because you think the economy will get worse, you get really bad, and if you increase consumption and spending because you think it will get better, it gets really good. For this reason, no government is willing to admit the fact that the economy is difficult. This is because the recession is likely to accelerate. Of course, there is a big difference between being aware of it but not saying it and not being aware of it at all. I quietly listened to the other businessmen. Anyone else to talk to? When no one showed up, President Ha Chong-min told me, "I would also like to say something to CO Kong Jin Hu." The mic passed into my hand and the camera pointed towards me. I got up and said, "First of all, it is an honor to be able to attend this event. I don't know much about the economy, but I want to tell you about what I feel while running and investing in an OTK company." President Ha Chong-min smiled and nodded and the atmosphere was friendly. I went on to say, "The Korean economy is in a difficult situation right now, and many companies are lagging behind in new industries. And you can't really say that the people here are not at all responsible for that. Korean chaebols are closely connected with the political world. If the chaebol groups had been active in fostering new industries, the government would have responded to some degree. However, chaebol groups were complacent with their past successes. The physical law of inertia also applies to businesses. It's easier to keep doing what you've been doing than to start a new job from scratch. And so far it has worked. Consumers liked it when they made and released a more comfortable and luxurious carriage than the existing carriage. But somewhere in the meantime a car was created. CL Electronics missed out on the smartphone market, and distribution groups Shinsegae and Light are struggling in the online market. The successes of the past are now being held back. Suddenly the atmosphere became cold. Everyone looked uncomfortable. Now the conversation will be on the news tonight. First of all, there are too many outdated regulations. It is true that business activities need regulation, but Korea is too harsh. Even global startups become illegal the moment they enter Korea. This does not mean that the domestic industry is being properly nurtured while preventing foreign companies from entering the country. At this rate, new industries will be deprived of foreign countries within a few years. The staff had a look of disappointment, and President Ha Chong-min didn't look very good either. He asked, hiding as much discomfort as possible. Then what would you like to do? As before, we need to stop procrastinating reforms while noticing the votes of minority interest groups. If it is the right thing to do and it is for the country and the people, then we should proceed without considering the party's failure or the counting of votes in elections. My remarks were nothing more than an outright criticism of the politicians. In an instant the atmosphere darkened. No one even made a sound, and President Ha Chong-min's face turned slightly red. But I kept saying it without paying attention. Governments and businesses need to prepare for the future. There is not much time left. President Ha Chong-min nodded his head with a bitter expression. Good to hear. After that, the conversation continued for another 2 to 3 hours. President Ha Chong-min looked around the businessmen and said, "Today was a very meaningful event. I think the government's perspective is different from that of business people in the field. We will continue to work hard and we will do our best to be of great help to our government. In the future, we will continue to communicate with entrepreneurs through these events on a regular basis." After the Blue House meeting, Kang Jin-hoo's remarks immediately became an issue. Gang Jin-hoo, Hyo Chong-min government's economic policy full criticism. Korea economy lagging behind new industries. Corporate innovation index bottom. The government and the National Assembly can't do their job. The Blue House officially acknowledges the recession. The ruling New Politics Party expressed regret for Kang Jin-hoo's remarks, while the Liberty Korea Party raised its voice by criticizing the Blue House and Kang Jin-hoo at the same time. A few days later, President Ha Chong-min made the announcement in person in front of reporters. Through regulatory reform, we will foster new industries and create new jobs. We will set a deadline for newly created regulations and discard them as soon as they are found to be irrelevant, and we will change the regulatory legislation from the current positive to negative. A positive approach sets what you can do and doesn't allow anything else. On the other hand, the negative method writes down what not to do, and if it does not fall into that category, it is widely allowed. Naturally, the latter case allows us to respond much faster and more flexibly to industrial changes. In addition, if more than 100,000 people agree to a petition for unreasonable regulation on the Blue House website, the relevant ministries will respond and discuss abolition or amendment. This is not the first attempt by the Blue House, but an imitation of the White House's "We the People." As soon as the announcement was released, petitions for the release of regulations poured out on the website as if waiting. Let's abolish the game shutdown system. What kind of crazy bastard made these regulations? Please allow restaurants and cafes to open terraces and rooftops. Aren't you going to remove the Dantong Act? Korea also needs to share rides. Restrictions on accommodation sharing should be lifted. Allow autonomous driving and driverless cars. Please allow both individuals and short sails. Please release the upper limit of the moon balloon. Do BJs live on the ground? Let's create new regulations on overseas business trips of members of the National Assembly. Please remove the height limit to activate the reconstruction. I want to raise it up to the 80th floor of our apartment. I hope to revitalize the drone industry by making reasonable regulations. It is necessary to introduce telemedicine and AL treatment. There were many petitions calling for unnecessary regulatory reform, but there were also many duplicate petitions, unreasonable requests, or useless content. However, one particular petition caught people's attention. Porn regulation deregulation. Has the government ever made our people have happy dreams? I want to ask the government. Has the government ever made our people comfortable to watch porn? Is porn bad? Is it ethically problematic and causes all sorts of problems? Then why do they allow the US, UK, France, Germany, etc., whose human rights level is higher than that of Korea? Porn allowed me to have a blissful time that I had never had in real life. Maybe I can meet a lover like that too. Maybe I can censored, too. Now that porn is illegal, why don't our people watch porn? People are not stupid. I watch pornography because I think healthy adult men and women should be allowed to watch it, and I don't just look at it randomly, but meticulously check the production company, actors and part numbers, and look for only good works wisely at a level that does not interfere with daily life. However, due to some illegal filming, even us who watch normal and legally produced pornography are being treated as criminals. Thorough management of porn production companies, imposition of taxes, protection of actors' human rights and prohibition of access to minors. This is, of course, a system that should be implemented. I'm not against it. Of course, there is nothing difficult about finding porn on the internet today. Nevertheless, I am raising this petition because it is judged that pornography is the main industry of the fourth industrial revolution in the flow of the times. Until when do growing up adults have to watch American pornography or Japanese AV that doesn't fit the Korean situation? Now is the time for Korea to produce pornography as well. In a situation where developed countries have already invested in the porn industry and are developing further, Korea is experiencing economic decline due to unreasonable regulations. Please do not take away the dream of being able to watch Korean porn in Korea proudly. The petition, posted by an anonymous netizen, quickly spread to other sites. It was really the first thing I saw in a while. I almost cried watching it. In terms of pornography, Korea is still a colony of Japan. We must stop the socialist behavior that relies on the pornography of Western powers. When spraying, click agree. The government should loosen regulations on the porn industry. Let's foster a new industry. What's wrong with seeing adult content? Click agree and let's spread the link. The petition to deregulate pornography succeeded in getting 100,000 signatures in just 2 days after it was posted, and a whopping 1 million signatures within a week after that. It was the shortest time and the largest number of consents among all the petitions.